Well, the business sector is really worried about the impact the ongoing power cuts are having on investment opportunities in South Africa. The embattled power utility suggested implementing indefinite rolling blackouts to allow for a sense of normality and better planning by communities. We heard that from the chairperson of the board of Eskom yesterday. Of course, the power utility came out to say that that had been discarded as an idea. So there's a certain amount of uncertainty about whether permanent stage 2 and 3 blackouts are actually still being considered by the power utility. Anyway, senior reporter Silindelo Masikane has been speaking to South Africans, but specifically speaking to small businesses, and she joins us now. So, Slee, I mean, here we are. We're back at stage 3 during the day, stage 4 toward the evening. This has been a relentless start to the year in terms of load shedding. And we know as soon as we get to stages 3, 4 and beyond, it is extremely difficult for small businesses, for infrastructure to cope. You've been speaking to a lot of South Africans. I'm sure you've heard a lot of abuse and anger today.
Yeah, look, I can tell you right now, Sally, there's a lot of anxiety and frustration in terms of businesses on the ground. My colleague Mbuzeni Bulasigoba and I spent our days in Randburg and Parkhurst, just trying to crisscross those restaurants and small businesses, your hair salons, your internet cafes, just to get a sense as to how they're coping and how have they been coping over the past couple of months. And it's been very difficult, you know, for those who can afford to have generators, to have inverters. They're saying even that is becoming a bit of a cost on its own, and those who don't are suffering the costs of having to perhaps, for example, throw their food away. Those who are in restaurants, you know, their fridges can't stay on during the load shedding schedule, and so they have to throw out the food because it's off. Therefore, it's costing them thousands of rands on a weekly basis. You know, one particular small business that actually quite broke my heart. She's very young, just started this small bougie bowl kind of fresh salads, organic food. So you can imagine that she is constantly throwing away produce on a weekly basis. She can't afford it. She can't afford backup power. And she says she doesn't even think she's going to survive the next 6 months at this rate. And she says with that proposed stage 2, stage 3 power cuts, she says
that her ongoing
exactly. She's saying her anxiety is just through the roof. She thinks she just needs to close shop at this point because she does not think she'll be able to sustain herself or her business. So let's just take a listen to some of those feelings on the ground from those small business owners.
That probably could be one of the reasons we'll actually have to shut our doors and close because we cannot keep up with it. Trying to refill up our generators. We even were in the process of considering solar. And that alone is a lot of money. It's money we can't afford right now, and especially with the food prices going up. For a consumer, when they look at it and they see our prices being so high, they don't want to come to us. Because how can we come to a restaurant where if your portion sizes are not as big as what they are, they can't justify the reasoning behind it. As to why must I pay this price when I can cook it better at home? And yes, you always can. But with everything that's at the moment, with the economy as it is, it's not. It's very, very hard to stay afloat at the moment.
Definitely not. Literally, when I heard that news, my heart dropped. Like, we are so nervous that this is going to be the end. Yeah, it's terrible. It's honestly scary. It's scary.
And, you know, let's just be clear of what we're hearing, just for point of clarity. The chairperson of the Eskom board very clearly said that we are considering to give a bit of space to Eskom to do its maintenance, to have this ongoing stage 2 and 3 pattern so that they can actually build up a bit of space so that, you know, it might help stop us plunging into the depths of 4, 5 and 6. So he clearly said that, and I've listened back to what he said, looked at the transcripts as well. But we know that Eskom Sekunati Manchanja, who speaks for the management team really, came out and said to journalists, look, guys, it was considered, but it's off the table now. Andre de Ruyter is saying it's no guarantee, even if we went into a permanent pattern like that, that we'd avoid those deeper stages. So,
I mean, I think we see in terms of what we've seen over the past couple of months. For a few hours in a day, we're on stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and then overnight we get plunged into stage 6. That's just how fragile the system really is. And I think for small businesses in particular, even at stage 2 and 3, it's still just unsustainable.
Yeah, and it is so heartbreaking, as you say, because we know that we have a jobs crisis, and we know that the solution to that jobs crisis is growing entrepreneurs who are very vulnerable, particularly when they're just starting out. The reality of load shedding is that there is a cost issue no matter where you turn. You're either going to lose through spoilt food, as an example, or you're going to have to spend money on a generator and therefore buy diesel.
Exactly. So if you're an entrepreneur wanting to start a business,
expensive.
I don't think you'd want to start one in this particular time. I think you would want to watch and see exactly how the government is going to deal and try and alleviate this problem. And I think at this point, South Africa is really in a crisis when it comes to electricity and where it's going to take our country, because we are trying to recover from a really terrible 2 years of the effects of COVID-19 and the pandemic. And to add this to it, I think you can really tell on the ground, especially when you are speaking to these small businesses, even medium enterprises, that they just simply cannot continue in this manner. And I think at this point, people would, in particular businesses, would be okay perhaps with load shedding overnight, but perhaps just during the day allow us to be able to trade.
So clearly from the people you've spoken to, this plan that's potentially been floated by the board to have this permanent load shedding at lower levels, not interested. They'd rather take their chances. You've also spoken to Business Unity South Africa. Where do they stand?
I mean, we are, of course, now looking at the effects of this rolling blackouts on investment. Does South Africa look like a desirable place for somebody to want to invest their money in? At this point, highly unlikely. Even worker federations like COSATU and SAFTU are saying this is self-sabotage, what's happening right now. Why is it that over the past decade, for a fact, that we still find ourselves in this particular crisis? Business Unity South Africa saying that they are working with government at this point to try and fix the situation, saying it doesn't help, playing the blame game. Right now, we all just need to rally together and try and find those solutions, saying that business is ready to come to the party. They do want to assist technically, operationally with the National Energy Crisis Plan, saying at this point it's just all hands on deck to try and fix this problem so that South Africa remains a desirable place for investment. Let's take a listen.
Not comfortable with the fact that this is the direction, this is where we are at, when you walk around and you can see the impact of load shedding, where businesses are closing down, people aren't working, there isn't enough foot traffic for consumers to be able to get what they need, or feel like if they leave their house, even though they have load shedding, they're able to get a substitute of whatever they wanted to do elsewhere. But I think because now we know how bad it can become when we get to much higher levels of load shedding and more consistent load shedding, there are instruments that are being developed in order to try and address some of these problems. If they're going to come in time in order to address the existential crisis of small business and medium businesses, I hope they will. But the impact is going to be severe.
Their plans, but there is no quick, easy way out of this one. Thank you so much, Silindelo Masikane, who has been speaking to South Africans about the possibility of a permanent load shedding scenario, something that it seems South Africans say, no, let's just go with what we've got and continue. Well, who knows?